The third project, and then I'll stop. I always think I talk too much, sorry. So it's what I've been calling the use of Wikidata for building data artifacts and Wikidata as a computational media process. So we know data are scattered, and they are so scared, but in this case they are scattered. So they are not in one database. Maybe sometimes they are not even in a database at all. And we know data is best understood when it can be visually investigated, because basically when you have a large table or items that are disaggregated, you cannot really see what you are actually being confronted with. So you cannot reach an aggregated abstract level of understanding. And this can actually change the way we deal with how we look things on the internet, or how we work with our very human curiosity. So the way that we all, and this is now wearing my digital computational professor hat, we all go to the internet for answers. So even if you are not doing it, when you go to a search engine and you only type some words or keywords, what you are doing is actually saving some finger typing about a question you are asking. So you're able to actually find the question you're asking the internet to be solved by keywords, because when we go to a search engine, we all go looking for answers, which means we have a question. And by using Wikidata, we are able to actually understand the role of the internet or the digital process or ecology at a different level, which is called querying. Looking for not only answers, but building the tool or the technology that will deploy the answer I'm looking for. And this is a little bit more sophisticated, but it's really powerful. This is where I think lies the beauty, or the most importantly, independent beauty of Wikidata. So I'll show you some examples of what I mean by this convoluted wording. Basically, you can check, as I said, of my need, where the museum, the monuments in São Paulo are located. So each one of these dots, and there are, I think, 1,100 dots, basically means a student of mine went to this exact location. So this is, you can actually trace the contours of the city of São Paulo. So if you don't know São Paulo, it's a really large city, I think, with several millions inhabitants. But what you can see is that most monuments, and these are the exact location of the monuments, even if they are stolen or destroyed. So they should be where these dots are, but you can see they are mostly concentrated on this area, which is of course the wealthier areas in the city. And this is the working class areas in the city, the East Zone. And you can see there is basically no monuments. If you did a query on museums, they would all be located, or almost all be located in the same areas. This is the financial center. You can see there is a line of monuments, because of course it's very wealthy, whereas in the working class neighborhoods, there is basically a desert of monuments, museums, basically of investment in culture. And this exact information, or the one, this, you can see many, I can see many things on this data that I'm visualizing here, is only available on Wikidata. So this is not something the public government has. because they don't have the manpower or woman power to go to these different locations, and each one of them, so this one were actually 4 students that I'm looking at here, is a Wikidata item that was built by a student. It has a description, it has a picture. Through the picture, because the picture brings some metadata on the location where the picture was taken, we can actually provide the geo coordinations, at least of the camera that the person used on this to take this picture. We can actually provide other information, and there is, so we can actually check the many pictures this particular student has taken. We can actually provide a very good quality account of culture in the city. And this has generated several media news pieces because we are providing new data. So this data, again, does not exist elsewhere. It only exists on Wikidata because Wikidata is able to provide a visualization that we didn't have before, and this is being done by querying the data. So if we look at the code or the querying that is being done, you see it's just, and in this particular case, it's not even, though if you're not familiar to this kind of queries, this one is not even that complex, and it can already provide you very good quality information. So let me show you a different example of the same direction of activity. So on this one, I'm looking at all the dams, so these plants to provide electricity on rivers or lakes or waterfalls that exist in Brazil, because the government said that there weren't so many. In like a year ago, Brazil had one of the most dramatic tragedies associated to one of these dams being flooded, and many people died, and a whole ecosystem was destroyed. And we are using Wikidata to actually check the situation of each one of these dams. And we are using this tool then through query to track whether or not the government is indeed investing what it should be investing to provide this kind of accidents that happen won't happen again. And this information again, so what we did, we scrapped data that was disaggregated all over the internet, and we brought it on Wikidata, and now we can have a picture of the whole country that does not exist elsewhere. So there is no other database that has, at least when we did it, I'm not sure if someone is already replicating it, that brought all this information in one single space. And again, this is a very different approach to Wikidata, and I hope I'm making the case convincingly. This is really powerful because we can actually use it for very powerful strategies. So this one, so let me check. So this one actually has, interesting, it has an article in English, not in Portuguese, which is interesting. But in general, in several of them, we check if randomly I can find one on which we have some measure here. So this one, based on one reference, which is basically the government itself, based on a map, it was assessed as medium risk of accident. But if a risk happens, the damage that will incur is very high. So all this again is being developed as a way of providing transparent information that again does not exist, as I've shown you in a visualization you can find on this particular object that was interesting for us, of course, because of the tragedy I've just mentioned. And a different example, I forgot which one was that. So okay, so this one is of course the one on the COVID-19. This is the portal of the COVID-19 on Wikipedia in Portuguese. And as I said, there is only one, or I guess there it's controversial actually, but there is a best option for how many cases of COVID-19 there is in the US right now. And if we agree this is the number, and numbers in this particular case are controversial because you have several investigations and accounts and databases, but let's say there is only one number that we, as a Wikimedia global community, we agree with, we can actually bring this curated information to all Wikipedias. And this particular table that shows how the COVID-19 pandemics is impacting basically all the countries in the world is probably the best source on the internet about what's happening in the world around these pandemics. I don't see feasible any other information developing community, knowledge developing community being able to do the kind of quality curation we do, just like we are doing. And if you Google it, basically, let's say I'm looking for the pandemics COVID-19, not surprisingly, if you look at the source that I get on Google, it's basically Wikipedia, which is basically Wikidata. So this data here, though they say it's Wikipedia, on Wikipedia in Portuguese, it's actually Wikidata. So this is bringing scattered information from diverse knowledge bases, sometimes not even databases for some cities in Brazil. We only know because of news media how many cases they have in their small community because the government is unable to reach this community. We can actually improve content at a pace and again in a shape that is pioneer and probably unprecedented. So this is a third aspect of the project. This again connected to education, as we need curation for this content, and this is being done by universities, as at least in Brazil, as assignments. And this is query-based media production. And this is a different approach to Wikidata, but I think this is probably the most powerful. This is probably going to change the way we understand how information is generated on the internet as we evolve our capacity to understand how powerful this is what we are doing.